Why we ain't doing that? Goal is to get everybody to move back to Africa. That's my goal.
Okay.
I want to get as many African Americans back home to Africa as I possibly can. Because I know the day they move back, everything they fighting for in America, they will not have to fight for over there. All the struggle that they struggling over there, they're gonna come there with this mindset, with this mentality, with the finances that they built, the equity in life, and bring it back and invest that in Africa. Man, Africa could be the strongest nation in the world if y'all went back home. Because we got everything that it takes to be that. We got the resources, we got the land, we got the population, and together we got the strength and we got the know-how. Like, why we ain't doing that? Oh,
All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off by saying, Kah Halayim La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harikak Wadash Ma'ama. Double honors to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and my elder Heroine as well. Salutations to the argument that are pushing the truth, the sincerity, and truth. And peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All right, I'm Khalak Samba Yashal from the lines of the Yashali camp. And this lesson I want to go into, as you can see, the clip that just played when Akon was talking about it as if, we are the same as the Africans, and that's not the case, man. We are not. We are not like them, man. We are not of them. We are not of their stock. We are not of their tribe. There's a difference. The Lord said a difference between the Africans and the children of Israel. So, Lord willing, I want to go into a little willing, edifying and serve His purpose for the hopefully elect, the ones that truly believe in the name of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. All right. It says, I'm gonna start at Sirach chapter 17, verse 1. It says the Lord created man of the earth and turned him into it again. All right. This is basically I'm using this to go into like all of us were created the same way, but not all of us are the same. Okay. That he gave them few days and a short time and power also over the things therein. He endued them with strength by themselves and made them according to his image. And that image represents law, order, and dominion over the earth, right? Not necessarily on you know, what we look like, but his spirit, so to speak, right? It says, and put the fear of man upon all flesh, and gave him dominion over beasts and fowls. They received the use of the five operations of the Lord, and the sixth place he imparted them understanding, and the seventh speech, an interpreter, and the cogitations thereof. All right, so everybody has some form of wisdom, and we have hearing, sight, smell, and some type of cognitive intelligence to separate us from the animals. All right, counsel and a tongue and eyes, ears, and a heart gave he them to understand. With all he filled them with the knowledge of understanding, and showed the good to show them good and evil. He set his eye upon their hearts that he might show them the greatness of his works. All right. He gave them to glory at his marvelous acts forever, that they might declare his works with understanding. But the only ones that are going to be able to declare his work with understanding are the children of Israel. All right. And the elect shall praise his holy name. Right. All right. And we praise the elect praises the name of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai and have full understanding of what of everything being created by by Yahweh Shai and the holy angels through the authority and the blueprint given unto them by Yahweh. All right. It says, beside this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an inheritance. And this is talking about the children of Israel. He made an everlasting covenant with them and showed them his judgments. All right. All right. So, right. So he shows us his judgments to Israel, and his statutes and his commandments. He shows his judgment to Jacob and his statutes and commandments to Israel, roughly paraphrasing. Okay. And he says, their eyes saw the majesty of his glory, and their ears heard his glorious voice. And we heard that and saw that when we came out of Egypt. All right. And it says, and he said unto them, beware of all unrighteousness, and he gave every man commandments concerning his neighbor. And that was given to the children of Israel. All right. It says, their ways are ever before him and shall not be hid from his eyes. And that's all humanity right there. Verse 16, it says, every man from his youth is given to evil, neither could they have to themselves fleshly hearts for stoning. right? So we're all subject to sin, uh, because we're born into sin once sin entered into the world. All right, so you can't have a fleshy heart. Um, the Lord has to make you have a fleshy or a stony heart. Verse 17. This is the point. It said, "For the division of the nations of the whole world, He set a ruler over every people, but Israel is the Lord's portion." Right. So Israel is a portion that's unto the Lord. So we are not the same people as the Africans. I want to go in depth into that. It says, "Whom being his firstborn he nourished with discipline, and giving him the light of his love, doeth not forsake him. Therefore their works are as the sun before him, and his eyes are continually upon their ways." All right. So so the Lord is continue has his heart and his mind set. Yahweh Shem Yahushua have the mind continually set and eyes set upon the children of Israel, man. So in the division of nation, he set a ruler over every people, some sort of government or some sort of God over every people. But Israel was the Lord's portion, man. So we are the portion uh of Yahweh by Shem Shai that's tender to his heart. All right, Israel is the former of all things. Okay. Next scripture I want to get is Exodus chapter 11, verse 7. Because even though I don't feel like we look like Africans, but even though we have similar features and characteristics, we are not the same people by a long shot. All right. This is Exodus chapter 11, verse 7. It says, "But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue." Right. So when it's giving references to dog, like it's talking about heathens. All right. "Against man or beast, that ye may know that the Lord doeth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel." So understanding the Egyptians, meaning the people from Matazarim, and it says a country in the northern section of Africa, adjacent to Palestine, through which the Nile River flows. All right. So now the scripture just says the Lord put a difference between the children of Israel and the Egyptians because we're the ones that's dear to the Lord's heart, man. Our ways are different. Um, and our calling is different because of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. You know? So as far as I'm saying, like, you know, if we were to go back to Africa, right? If we were to go back to Africa, we'd be able to do all these various things and make Africa the richest nation or the most dominant nation on earth. And which is true, but we're not originally from Africa because he understands that the so-called African Americans are the salt of the earth. All right, we're the ones that put true definition and define the things that happen and put the flavor and everything that goes on in this existence. So by him saying that, he's not lying. If we were to establish ourselves in Africa, we probably would. Just like how we built America up, off the backs of our ancestors. We would do the same thing any land that we go into. Thus, look at our captivities that we've gone through. We've been the one that built up all these nations. Now it's time for us to build ourselves. We don't want to be a part of anybody else. We don't want to be a part of anybody else. We want to be a part of ourselves, man. And from that, I want to go into Exodus chapter 2, right? Because Moses, right? Moses chose to be separate from the Africans, man. All right, even though he would have grew up rich, you know, he didn't want the blessings from them. He understood that he didn't know it exactly what he wanted, but he knew it wasn't to be around them. He didn't want to be up under that covering. All right, this is Exodus chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "And there went out of the house of Levi to," it says, "And there went a man out of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months." Right, because at that time they were trying to kill off all the male childs out of Egypt. All right. Like the thing about it is, we've always been at variance against. Um, we've always been the Egyptians, and I mean the Philistines, which come from that region, which would be the Sudanese people today, right? They they've always been our enemy, man. From the moment we came back into that land, and the Lord left them there as a reproach, because they wicked as hell. You know, it says, so she hid him, and this is going into Moses, right, for 3 months, so he wouldn't be, killed or whatever. Right, verse 3, it says, and when she could not no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and dabbed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. All right. And the word Moses means to be drawn from the waters. All right. All right. It says, and his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. All right. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. She didn't say it was an African. She said, this is one of the Hebrew children. So there's always been a distinction and a difference between the Africans and us. You know, it says, verse 7, it says, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Right. So she followed the little slacking. She followed the little thing that Moses was in, right? And kept watch to see what was going to come of him. And by instinct through the spirit of the Lord, she was like, oh, let me go get one of the Hebrew women to nurse him. All right. And it says, when it says, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. So Moses was Mashah in the Hebrew was reconciled back to his mother, man. All right, and it's all done through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It says, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Right. Just think of Moses' father, I mean mother or father would have been like selfish and would have like, no, I don't want to give my child back. No, then we wouldn't have had a deliverer to bring us out of the land of Egypt. And Moses was being set up to do that, man. So this is all the doing of Yahweh Shem Shai, but within that we're seeing a difference being set between the children of Israel and the Egyptians, which are Africans. All right. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water, man. Right? And that's all spiritual, man. Verse 11. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, his kinfolk. All right? It says, and looked on their burdens, and said, and he spied an Egyptian smiting in Hebrew, one of his brethren, right? So now this is where understanding that difference clicked in the mind of Moses, right? And he already knew he was different from them. And he says, and he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand, right? So he did that because of the persecution of our people, man, that he's seen happen to his people, our people, children of Israel. Verse 13, and it says, and when he went out the second day, Behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said unto him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? Right? So Moses was trying to give, like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Edify him, like, yo, we don't need to strive together. We're brothers. We're all brethren, man. You know? He said, and he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killed the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. All right. And so the point is that, Moses could have lived a life as an Egyptian, right? But he understood that there was a difference between the children of Israel, and he rather, live impoverished in the caves somewhere in Midian than to live the luxurious lifestyle of the Egyptians. Because he could have said, "All right, fuck it," you know, kick his ass. But no, he saw the persecution going on from his brethren, and he sought to, to do something about it. But our people today are are against one another that they will probably help the Egyptians till they beat up one of our people, because it's self hate. We want to cleave on to everything else but us being the children of Israel. And nobody wants us to be called the children of Israel, you know? So if that's being said, it's gonna take all the African Americans to come back, the so called African Americans to come back in order for um Africa to be established as a dominant nation. Africa has all the resources. So why is it being overran by, especially if you look, if you some man, listen, how many Caucasian Esau looking Edomite looking individuals have you seen? Anybody that says they're South African, all of them be Edomites. You know, they took over all that land. They took over all that, man, and we've always been at war against the Africans, the Philistines. You know, next scripture I want to get is um let's get First Samuel, right? First Samuel chapter 17. We're probably gonna read this whole chapter because this goes into um King David fighting Goliath. All right, it says, now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle and were gathered together at uh, Shokol, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokol and Azekah in Ephes Damin. All right, so Philistines right there says means immigrants, the an inhabitant of Philistina, descendants of Metazarim. All right, who immigrated from Kapoor. So these are the Sudanese people. All right, that lived in the western seacoast of Canaan. All right, so now just to get an understanding who you are and who they are, and and when we came out, if I'm not mistaken, Joshua went against the five kings of the Philistines of Canaan. Um, when we came out, when we were going into them to take over that land. All right. So verse 2 it says, and Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. All right, so this is constantly what went on, right? When Saul became king, when King David became king, but it kind of died off when King Solomon became king. All right, but we've always been, you know what I'm saying? The Philistines have always been our enemy, even from the time when the Africans defiled. I want to say those were Philistines too. I'm not sure, but they were Africans when they filed Delilah, the daughter of Jacob. All right, verse 4 it says, and there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was about 6 cubits, and a span. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat of mail was 5,000 shekels of brass. Wow, this is a big dude, right? And you know, like Manute Bol, that's a Sudanese dude. I used to date a chick from Sudan, right, who lived in Egypt. She moved here from Egypt, and she was like 5'10", like 180 pounds, no fat, just solid, nice shape, beautiful woman. And she said she was small for the woman in her village. All right, so these are big people. So the tribe of Goth, are they were big, man. They were huge. Verse 6, and it says, and he had graves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine? Am not I a Philistine? And ye service to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. All right. So this is the stage is being set. Right. You got Israel on one side, and and the Philistines on the other side. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that he may fight together. We may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Right, because um this is the part where King David is about to start to be set up as king, man. It says, now David was a son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons, and the men went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle, and the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and the third Shammah. Shammah. All right, it says, and David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephod of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their thousands, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all of the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines have put the battle in array, army against army. So we're constantly fighting against them, man. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath, by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. All right, this is when it's about to get real. All right, because Goliath he finna mess around and find out. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it should be that the man who killeth him The king will enrich him with great riches and will give him his daughter and make him father father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine and taketh away the reproach from Israel? Because all these other nations are a reproach to us, man. For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living power, man? So there's a separation right there. First of all, the circumcision, you know, and King David, that was twofold. He was talking physically and spiritually because he didn't have faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, but King David did. And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, as he said, Why camest thou hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and thy naughtiness in thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. All right, it says, and David said, What have I done? What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake after this manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. So King David asked again, now what's going to happen if somebody killed this nigga? I mean, this guy? All right, and it says, and when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Right? And so we and to this day we're still at war with all these other nations, man. We're not to be joined onto any of these other nations, man, because ultimately it's only to keep us suppressed and for them to gain and benefit off the backs because of off the backs of our people because of the curses that we're under. But no, these curses are going to be lifted from us, all right? And the Lord's going to establish us as a nation, and we're going to be ruling under the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay? It says, Saul said unto David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. But we worship the God of war. That's the key point. All right, verse 34. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after him and smote him and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Right? So King David was like, Man, I fight lions and bears in the wilderness, tending to the sheep. So what is you talking about? This uncircumcised Philistine, he ain't got nothing on me. All right. Verse 36, it says, Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he have defied the armies of the living power of Yahweh by Shem Yahushua. That's beautiful, man. Because we don't want to be joined unto these nations, man. We want our nation to join and form together. That tabernacle of David, right? And the elect, the first fruits, that's going to usher in everyone else. It says, Verse 36 again, it says, Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living power. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord shall be with thee. And that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. So there's a separation, right? And then David's going to go into further explaining this separation. Verse 38, and Saul armed David with his armor, and he put his helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, For I have not proved them, and David put them off of him. So he wanted to go in his regular shepherd's clothes, man. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield with before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. All right. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And there goes there's another form of separation. They don't have they don't have the authority to worship Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. Only we do. All right. So the Lord put a separation from us between these other nations. All right, Salakia. It says, verse 44, and the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Lord of hosts, the power of the armies of Israel, who thou hast defiled, man. This day will the Lord deliver thee unto mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a power in Israel, man. That's the separation. And these other nations want us to cleave on onto them so they can feel that power because they know that as long as we're around, these other nations become blessed and can get rich off the backs of the children of Israel, man. All right. But the Lord is going to put a change to all that. You know, the Lord, and there's a reason why we're going through all this because we didn't listen to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. All right, that's it. From there, I want to go to Deuteronomy 38, 28, Slakia. Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Well, 28 and 15 first. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 1. It says, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently to the voice of the Lord, Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, thy power to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord shall set thee above all nations of the earth, man. And that's the only reason why we're at the bottom right now, because we refuse to listen. So the Lord, not only is there a separation between us and the Africans, but there's a separation between us and all these other nations, man. All right. So skip down to verse 15, and it says, But if thou, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of thy power, thy to do, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee, man. All right. And one of the curses that this Akon is talking about is the reason why we got over here in America in the first place. All right. Deuteronomy 28:68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee unto Egypt again by ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Right? So it was an enemy that sold us unto our enemies because it wasn't Africans that sold other Africans. It was Africans that sold the Israelites, all right? Sold the Israelites into slavery, man. And that's just it. All right, from now, I want to go into a little bit how we got over here into America, going into the sub-Sahara and transatlantic slave trade. Okay,